and then I'll pass on to Dave. So from an e-wheel drive point of view, so the rear axle and the front axle are actually completely separate from a propulsion standpoint. So there's no connection, there's no drive shaft, there's nothing that connects those two. It is also, for lack of some comments, it is also not a plug-in. So the complete energy system is, the energy is driven through the road. So energy is captured through braking, through coasting, going down a hill, anything that is propelling the vehicle without having to drive the front motor, we're capturing that energy and recharging the battery out. What does connect the two is really just brains, so chassis controls, and there's a TPM, integrated chassis control modules. There's modules within the vehicle that are really commanding the car and telling the car, based on your throttle input or any other input, where and how much torque to apply to each axle. To give some examples there, at a wide open throttle type maneuver from a standing start, when you are maybe doing that, trying to get that 2.5 seconds, is commanding 100% torque to the front axle, because it can, and you can get 100% torque on that electric motor to the front axle, really pulling that front axle while the engine, the ICE engine or internal combustion engine, is ramping up torque and able to really apply as much torque as it can to the rear wheels without breaking traction or maximising the traction and the grip in the rear to really propel the car. Modes. So actually, maybe I'll talk a little bit more, about e-all drive. So all that happens without really you even knowing about. So there's nothing you need to do to tell the car, do I want to propel the car? From an electric standpoint, from an ICE standpoint, the brains behind the car is all doing that automatically. You don't need, apart from maybe having the screen up in the cluster display, there is a unique ERAY display that tells you when the front axle or the rear axle is commanding torque. Apart from that, it is seamless. You wouldn't even know. Apart from obviously the extra performance that you're getting from the vehicle. But really, whether the front axle is generating energy, creating energy, doing nothing, and it's all the ICE engine or internal combustion engine driving the torque, it is all seamless. Nothing that you need to do. Just like, I guess, driving your Stingray, it's unnoticeable from that point of view. Electric modes. So there isn't the advantage of this car, and there are some EV-only modes that are customer selectable. So this is where you would have input. And we call it a secret handshake to get into those modes. And what that is when you get into the vehicle, you're probably familiar with getting into your vehicle, foot on the brake and hitting the start button. In this car, if you want to get into one of the EV modes, there's one extra step there. You get into the car, before hitting the start button, you have to select the ride mode switch or the driver selector button, and that enables, up on the cluster, you'll see 3 options there. There will be normal mode, which is really what you're familiar with as an internal combustion engine mode, and then there are 2 EV modes. One is called shuttle mode, and the other one is called stealth mode. I'll start with shuttle mode. Shuttle mode is a mode, really, as it states, is for shuttling your car around. So it has a max speed of 15 miles an hour. It has a range of about 4 miles an hour. And really what it's set up to do is to shuttle your car around, whether it be in your garage, just to avoid starting the engine or fumes or anything in a confined space. You're able to move your car around in your garage or your driveway. Well, the other scenario might be at a track. You want to keep your engine nice and cool. You might want to shuttle your vehicle to a certain position at the track, just to keep that nice engine cool. So that's really what shuttle mode's all about. And if anyone has any questions, we're going to make sure we save questions for the end, so there'll be plenty of times for those as we talk about these modes. I'm just really going to touch on them here. Stealth mode. So stealth mode is really your on-road mode. So the idea of stealth mode is to start the car in EV, so the car starts silently. The ICE engine or internal combustion engine doesn't start at all. There's no exhaust noise. And it's really to be able to leave your subdivision quietly, leave your home quietly. It has some limitations too. It's got a 45 mile an hour limitation. It also has about 2 to 3 mile range. But really the point of it is to be able to leave your subdivision quietly, and then the startup of the ICE engine, whilst you can select it to start yourself, and there's a few ways you can do that, that also happens automatically in certain scenarios. So once you breach that 45 mile an hour zone or limit, the ICE engine will automatically fire up and kick in. And then there's a few other scenarios where that may occur as well. One is if you command some extra throttle input, i.e. you're telling the car that, hey, I really want to go now, it will start up the engine and take off like a rocket. We call that a flying start. Other ways to start it would be, in this car, the HVAC system, or the heating and air conditioning system, is reliant on the ICE engine starting up. So the AC compressor is reliant on the ICE motor to be able to rotate and turn and get that going. So anytime you hit a demist button, hit AC, anything like that, it will automatically fire the engine. Okay. A couple of other items that are unique to the ERAY. We do have Charge Plus buttons. So I know I talked about earlier how, as a driver of this car, you don't need to do anything. It really happens seamlessly. There is, however, a button called Charge Plus that helps really accelerate the charging of the battery. So that is really encouraging the ICE motor, encouraging regen, encouraging the battery to charge up quickly. There's a couple of reasons why you might want to do that. One of those is you really want to, the next morning or the next startup cycle, you want to start in stealth and you want to maximize your range of the battery. So you want the battery charged up. You might hit Charge Plus as you're headed home and really top off the battery and get it charged up. The other point of it is really on track. You might want to, there's different modes within the ERAY on track. One of those, for example, is to be able to conduct a hero lap, where you're really maximising the front axle and maximising all the horsepower this vehicle has for you to really propel the car and get that hero lap. But in doing so, you're obviously depleting the battery. So the next lap you might be in traffic, or part of the lap you might be in heavy traffic, and to get that battery charged up to really take off like a rocket again on the track, and hit the Charge Plus button and really top off the battery as well. The other feature I wanted to talk about is stop start. So there's another feature on ERAY that is unique to ERAY for model year 24, and that is, you're familiar with it maybe with other GM products. That is a feature that really excels on this car as far as it being seamless due to that front motor. And due to the front motor, when the engine starts up and you come up to a stop light, the engine shuts down, you take the foot off the brake, engine starts up again. But as you take off, that front drive motor is really pulling that as your engine warms up, as the torque comes up on the engine, and it's really seamless, that start-stop on this vehicle. Mainly, unlike some other vehicles with start-stop, they're not seamless either, but it really excels on this car just based on that front drive motor and really being able to pull that front axle. All right, I'm going to save any other questions to the end on that and pass you over to David Simpson.
Thank you, Trevor. So as Trevor mentioned at the beginning, he kind of has the whole car over the top. I work what we call propulsion. So like you mentioned, anyone who recognized me, I'm program quality manager of the transmission. And then for this car, I also have the whole front drive motor and the battery pack. So I'll go a little deeper into that stuff. To start, both the drive motor and drive unit and the battery pack are assembled in Brownstown, Michigan at one of our GM facilities there. They, like I said, produce both the motor and the battery pack there. So that's a really cool facility to see. So starting with the battery pack, it is an 80-cell pack, 4 different modules of 20 cells in each. They're LG cells that are stacked, and that whole battery pack assembly is part of the car structurally in between both seats. So it actually helps add rigidity to the frame. chassis of the car overall. And it's kind of been integrated and designed from the ground up in this car. So we obviously knew we were going to do this type of car and have that type of functionality with the front motor. It included that ability to have a battery pack there. So with that battery pack, we have to keep it cool. So in an ERAY, we added 3 additional cooling loops to the car. So one of them, we had a very small coolant reservoir bottle in the rear of the vehicle. That's what cools the battery pack. It actually uses air conditioning as well to cool the battery pack, keep it as cool as we can. Obviously, that's the worst thing you can do with electronics is get them hot, so we try and keep it as cool as we can. That allows us to charge and discharge the battery as fast as we can. And that's what gets those really quick times like Trevor was talking about, but also allows us to charge it very quickly and then also discharge very quickly. So on that, it's a 300 volt battery. We can completely discharge all 1.1 kilowatt hours of that in a quarter-mile drag straight. By the time you slow down at the end of your quarter mile, turn around, hit the return lane, and get back to the pits, you've already completely charged that battery back up. So that's using Charge Plus, like what Trevor was talking about. That gives you an idea kind of truly how small this battery pack is, but how we've designed it to go charge in and charge out as fast as possible to get us as much performance as we can out of this car. So the other cooling system is up front. It cools all of the electronics. So behind us in the center is our cutaway car. Really easy to see in from the passenger side. We've got the cutaway of that battery pack. So all of our electronics are actually integrated in our pack. So we don't have a module back here in the car or up front in the car. We put all that in the battery pack to make it as small, easy to install, and kind of compact as possible. So we've got a cooling loop that actually cools our TPAM or our electronic traction inverter module up there. And then the third cooling loop is all the way up in the front right of the car. Again, on the cutaway, you can see that we had a black kind of radiator up there, or oil to air intercooler, and that cools the actual oil that's in the drive motor. So the drive motor has about 3.3 liters of ULEV oil in it, basically automatic transmission fluid in it. That's cooled through there. The main battery pack is cooled up through the front, and the condenser up there actually is dual purpose. Again, on that cutaway car shows it beautifully. It's kind of really small fins, and at the bottom they get much thicker, so that's what the cooling is for the battery pack. And then we've got the one back. Okay. So the drive motor going through that, it is an overall 8.16 ratio, and that's done via kind of the sizing of the motor with a single planetary gear set in it and then a transfer gear coming out of it. Again, I'll highlight it is one drive motor. We don't have one on each axle. It's one centered in the car that helps us keep weight down and kind of balance the car overall. And we've got that integrated differential in there to output to both axles. So it is an open differential, but again, it's very small, very compact, built into the car to keep the weight down as much as we can and improve performance as much as we can. So a lot of people ask, hey, how much does all that weigh, right? That sounds heavy. There's a battery pack, there's a motor, there's all this. So our entire battery pack and motor assembly weighs less than 200 pounds. So you add 200 pounds to the car, and that puts out 160 horsepower in the car. So that's pretty impressive power to weight ratio addition that we're slapping on top of the 6.2 V8 on the back. So again, really complex, really compact, power dense unit that we add to the car overall. If there's anything else major to touch there. I don't think I had anything else specific. Obviously, we'll open up the questions from there. Trevor or I will try to get to as many as we can. If you know specifically whether you want Trevor or Dave to answer, let us know and we'll go from there. So go ahead, I'll start with you.
In weather mode, the four-wheel drive part of it.
So
how
just
does this work? It has to have a unique weather mode.
Yeah, so just highlighting kind of Trevor touched on it lightly, but the specific question around weather mode, how we integrate the front axle to the rest of the car. So again, that's done through all the different modules. I don't even know how many exactly, but the car kind of knows you're going into weather mode. There's specific patterns on how we convert power, whether it's to the secondary axle up front or the primary axle in the rear. So the simple answer is it's all integrated, and with every drive mode, whether it's weather, tour, sport, or track, we're going to have a little bit different front motor integration based on that. But it's kind of all the same because it's always working together. Yep.
Is there a scenario in which shuttle mode kicks on the ice?
Shuttle mode will never turn on the ice engine. So if you go shuttle mode, say you're in an empty parking lot going around and you deplete the full battery, we'll essentially stop the car there, and it is there until you power cycle the car off, and then you can fire it back up in normal mode and drive away on the ice engine. So yeah, that is your way to prevent, baby sleeping inside, whatever, don't want to wake them up. That's how you stay completely quiet.
Not to confuse the matter, but if you added Callaway supercharger kit to the ERAY, in case right now that travels with the way
So, I'm going to have to ask you a question again. You're talking supercharger or a charger on the...
added a supercharger because you're dealing with the same motor typically as the regular C8 to the ERAY. Is that going to complicate the integration between the electric and the driving machine?
So that is purely aftermarket. I can't really speak to purely aftermarket stuff, but I can't see any reason why that would change any scenario with the front axle.
And given that Callaway's working with GM on their package, so it's a GM approved package, you're saying that ERAY should change thumbs up.
Yeah, I just have to reiterate though, it's aftermarket, so us commenting on that is difficult.
I'm for aftermarket, but I'm not sure how to handle the electric part. He's a good answer.
Is front end lift still available in the E-Ray?
Yes, front end lift, or what option code as we know it is E60, is available on the ERAY.
Comment on the performance aspects of the all-season compared to I understand the performance is good on the all-season.
The all-season tyre performance is amazing, and as the tyre would suggest, in all seasons, I and Dave and a few of us have had the pleasure of being able to enjoy this car in all weather conditions, including hot summer's days through to 6 to 8 inches of snow-packed road, and these tyres are unbelievably well-performing tyres.
It would be worth putting
I would not recommend that. We do have the ZER package, summer tyre package, with the PS4S package on the E-Ray as well, for those that are really wanting to look for that little bit of extra dry weather performance in the tyre.
Is the transmission any different in that versus the Z06 or the Stingray?
So the question is the transmission different in E-Ray? High level answer is yes. This transmission is based on the transmission that is in the Stingray with the ELSD or the Z51 package. So it's an electronic limited slip differential in the transmission on this car. And then we obviously have to add an auxiliary pump in this so that we can pull the car out of park when we're in those EV modes and get basic functionality. So while you're in an EV mode and you're in shuttle driving, or stealth, driving around, and we know the ICE engine is going to start up at one point, that auxiliary pump is actually there, and we're shifting forks in the transmission, just like if it was on and running like normal, kind of getting ready. So whatever speed you're at, whatever kind of speed and throttle input you have, we're shifting gears ready to go. And then as soon as that ICE engine fires up, we're already in the right gear. We just apply clutch once we have clutch pressure and take off from there. So it's based on the ELSD, which is the Z51 transmission of the Stingray, with that added functionality.
Was there a change from 23 to 24 with the transmission?
So question on 23 to 24 transmission. I'll hit it briefly. Can talk to you a little bit more if you have more questions after on transmission stuff. But 24 and actually late 23, there is kind of a decent sized change in the transmission. A few things are updated and stuff from there. So the one thing I will highlight and touch on, or maybe I'll do two, for the transmission side is 24 and beyond, and actually very late 23 and beyond. If you're going to the track, you don't have to add those 2 extra liters. So we've improved how we manage the oil within the transmission, get it back into the sump, and we've got a slightly deeper sump in the 24s and beyond. It's very similar to the Z06 transmission, so it's actually the same main case as the Z06. That's why you don't need that additional oil. Again, 23 late and beyond, we'll end up publishing that VIN breakpoint in service information. So if you need to know, it'll be in there. Be able to go from there. Say that again. Yeah, so question on life of the battery if it's not being used or very low usage. The battery has an 8-year, 100,000-mile warranty on it. Probably should have touched on that to start with, which is pretty impressive, I think, especially for a brand new battery and technology there. If the car sits, I know I get a lot of people, hey, I live in Michigan, so do we. Gonna let the car sit all winter in the garage. Probably won't be able to enter stealth or shuttle right away. You'll probably need an ICE engine start there. But if you park it at 72% charge, you pull it out, it'll be right at 72%. So when you power the car off at 12 volt and shut it down, it actually fully disconnects that hybrid battery system from it. So it'll just basically sit there dormant until you power it back up, connect the connectors again. Yeah, so question is on how the battery charges specifically. There is no plug in this car. Probably shouldn't have touched on that, either of us. It only charges the battery over the road. So with the front axle, so Trevor touched on, you hit that Charge Plus button. What we actually kind of do is request the ICE engine for a little bit of extra power. We tell the front axle, hey, let's go into regen here. So that's how we pull the extra power up front, push the car a little harder, and then regen it in the back to keep you at that speed you're at. So that's how it gets that Charge Plus, but without Charge Plus, it's doing that all the time. If you're going down a hill and coasting, we're going to be regenerating as much of that as we can.
Could you speak to the car's ability to use the front wheels and the rear wheels that to steer you through a turn? Mountain driving, track driving. How do you make the decision to how to vector that torque? With the electronic differential in the rear, you can do that right and left. With a single motor in front, can you do that in the front as well? So that's kind of a two-part question. How do you balance the vector steering front to back? How do you balance the vector steering right to left?
Yeah, to answer your question, the front differential is an open diff. So really the vectoring is done, or the torque control is done front to rear. So rear left to right and front to rear.
Just with the, and it's only available to do it in the front, right?
Correct. Side to side, yes.
What can you tell us about the ZER option?
Sorry, the question was ZER option?
Or the performance option?
So the ZER option is really, like I commented earlier, is the summer tire. So it's the PS4S tire is really what ZER is. Tires.
What color is that?
Silver flare.
Very special any option to convert the exhaust to
No, the ERAY, that's what makes the ERAY unique is the outboard exhaust. Yes, it's wide body like the 06, but what makes it unique is the outboard exhaust. The options are the tips, the color of the tips, so black or chrome. Any other questions?
we're speccing one of these out, what do you have any specific options that people might overlook that you would recommend?
Options that I'd recommend. Someone commented before whether it comes with the front lift E60. That is an option that me personally would always recommend. The driveway that I've got back at home, that's definitely an option that I would recommend going forward. If the question is unique to ERAY, I'm not sure that there's anything that I could say that's unique to ERAY that I would particularly option up over a Stingray or a Z06. It does come pretty loaded. E60 is probably the first one to tick the box on personally.
I'll second, nothing special ERAY, but I always love the stealth interior with the blackout panels on that. But again, it's a personal thing. I'd agree with Trevor too on the front lift. I love having a car with that. When I do, if I don't, you gotta pay a little bit more attention to speed bumps, stuff like that. That's when I definitely would be adding if I were ordering a car right now.
Is mag ride standard?
Yep, mag ride is standard on all ERAY. Okay, anything else for us right now? Okay, so we will end it there. Obviously, if there's any questions, Trevor and myself will be around the tent the rest of the day. Most everyone here from GM is in a gray polo, so find one of us. A lot of us are subject matter experts in different areas of the car. So if Trevor or I can't answer your question, we have someone here that is an expert in that area and can help you. All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you.